Hello, everyone's. We are back because it is Sunday. Because it is Sunday, and every Sunday we get together to talk about reasonable doubt. But even bigger than that, we get together because we bring someone from the cast or from the creative team to talk to us about what they do, how they got into this industry, so that you can learn straight from the industry pros. So, we are here today and we are going to see if Instagram gives us a hard time. Okay? We are going to see if Instagram gives us a hard time. Come on, Instagram. Let Jordan in on the very first try. Okay, she has already sent me an invitation. So I'm going to accept it. And Dallas, welcome. All right, it didn't, but it sent another request. I clicked to let her in. Come on, Instagram. It has done this every single week, guys. Every single week. I push go live with you and it doesn't do anything. Okay, so what has helped in the past, Jordan, is you go out, come back in, and then do the request again. That has helped in the past. So let's see if it will help this time. Right, Instagram is in retro.
Hi.
That was
It
the
just like
quickest.
yeah,
That was
great. Hi.
the quickest that we've had.
Amazing. Can you hear me all right? And
I
is the
can.
AC behind me too loud?
No,
It is really hot here. Okay, great.
no. But sometimes I get an echo from me going through on your side, but other than that, it sounds fine. I'm just so glad we were able to do that so quickly.
I know. It's nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's a pleasure to meet you too. I'm so excited that you are here. So, the way that we do this is the majority of my audience is made up of screenwriters, people who are interested in screenwriting. But of course, there are actors and there are directors and other people who want to be involved in filmmaking in some sort of way. And so I think it's really great for them to hear from you because we're always being told that the best way, or at least one of the ways to get into a writer's room is as a writer's assistant. But of course, most people on the outside are like, well, what's that? What do they do? How do you even get there? So before we get to that part, and before we discuss the episode, last week's episode, we first want to start with like your backstory. Why did you make the crazy decision to even come this Hollywood route? Why we do this, I don't know.
Yeah.
But how did you get here? Tell us about you, Jordan.
Okay. I'm from Orange County, so kind of close, but totally different worlds. I don't know. I think I've always kind of been like a storyteller, I guess, and I feel like my brain just kind of exists in this like fantasy world sometimes. And I was an only child. I was bored a lot, and so I spent a lot of my free time just kind of writing stories and just creating and just like making like little like movies with like my parents' camcorder and stuff like of my dogs or whatever. And I don't know. I was just like always just trying to, I don't know, express myself creatively. And I feel like I was also really fascinated by movies and TV growing up as well, but like specifically that like visual storytelling.
Mhm.
It was just kind of like the whole kind of experience of it all, the way like it kind of impacted me, like the music, the characters, the stories. Um, as a little kid, I was like, that seems like a sick way to express myself creatively, so I'll go ahead and like try that.
Yeah.
I feel very lucky though, like that I kind of did realize what I was passionate about when I was younger, I guess. And also, I don't know if my parents are on here, but I'm really lucky to that they supported me, just in any sort of creative endeavor I kind of took on. And also when I said I wanted to major in screenwriting and go to film school. So that was something too. But yeah. That was kind of like just who I was. I'm gonna be rambling a lot during this, by the way. Just kind of
Hey,
like
ramble on.
back.
We're
My
going to
brain does not
learn
work.
something from it no matter what.
But yeah, no, I went to I definitely did that whole like assistant film school to assistant to writer's assistant to writer kind of path. So I'll be speaking kind of just from that perspective.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, like there's a lot of different ways to end up in a writer's room, but yeah, I went to Loyola Marymount University, the School of Film and Television there, majored in screenwriting. I am really grateful though for a well-rounded education, but for film school specifically, I don't know, like you get different opinions about it, you know, but you know, the positives kind of came out of it was, you know, it teaches you screenplay and story structure, gives you like those foundations. You study the classics. You build connections. You get a safe space to really get your bad stuff out of the way first, and like the whole process of like your classmates giving you notes, you learn how to kind of decipher like the note behind the note earlier on. And I mean, receiving notes is something that's always going to happen in our careers.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And while I was at college, I also interned a lot. I honestly like almost kind of burnt myself out interning. I was fortunate enough to do so, you know, during the semesters and stuff. I kind of just tried out different areas of the industry, from like management companies to, you know, small production companies, all over the place. And like the number one thing I think I learned though was, on top of just like how the industry currently was and like what they were buying, what they weren't, and things like that, was just like I just read a lot and I did a lot of coverage, and you know, and just reading what's currently out there right now, and like also hearing like what your supervisors and bosses have to say about it was really, really invaluable for me, and I think really helped my own writing as well. I think it was very clear to see like who was, you know, reading a lot and had like kind of, you know, a foot in the industry already, and who wasn't. But yeah, like the number one thing for me, I guess, like kind of going into the industry was just, I was really just trying to just meet people and just hear about their experiences, and, you know, like listening to their advice and taking that to heart and not really pushing an agenda on them. I just wanted to listen and hear, and, you know, and kind of just take what I thought would work for me. Made a lot of friends, you know, make friends with assistants wherever you go. Absolutely. They run the industry. Like when I was graduating college, you know, there's the whole mailroom route. I didn't I was really scared to apply to do the mailroom route. However, the advice I give to a lot of people trying to get a foot in the door is like working at an agency really opens up your world to connections and just other assistants, other people. It's kind of like grad school in a way, for just anyone working in this industry. Anyway, but I put it out there that I was graduating. Sorry, I'm going back on track. And an old assistant I had interned with reached out to me out of the blue, essentially kind of like let me know about an office PA position that was opening up at Amblin Television. And I kind of just, you know, he got my resume in there, and I did like five different rounds of interviews, but I got the office PA gig like almost right out of school, which is crazy. And that was just transcribing phone calls all day long, and also office tasks as well, but which is, I don't know, like kind of tedious. It sounds tedious, but that was my grad school in a way. Like I was on every single conversation, from casting to notes to budget, you know, locations, like it at a very high caliber company as well. It was really a great way for me to just kind of like gain my footing in the industry post college. And then, you know, everything in this industry really is just like chance and just timing and everything. And, you know, I was the dude who helped me get the job. He left, and I was covering his desk for one of the execs there, and he just promoted me to be an assistant. So then I was an assistant at Amblin TV, and that opened up my world to other assistants, and that's when I started meeting people. And reading a lot, and, you know, it just opened up my world basically. And I was there for a bit, and then like everything in this industry, luck and timing, who you know. I had an informational with a writer who knew Ramla Muhammad, and she knew that Ramla was looking for an assistant for a show that was about to be picked up, and so introduced me to Ramla and interviewed, and got the showrunner's assistant gig for season 1 of Reasonable Doubt pretty quickly. It was amazing. And yeah, and I was the showrunner's assistant season 1, and then writer's assistant season 2. Yeah.
That is great.
Oh,
That is great.
and then Ronald pushed me to apply to the Disney writing program. I got in.
Awesome.
It's amazing, and I'm currently staffed on ABC's High Potential.
Yes.
That's
Yes,
it. I'm
that is
done.
so great. Congratulations. So I'm going to take us back just because I want to pull out a couple of things to make sure that people heard them, right?
Yeah.
One of them that's kind of been a through line with a lot of the people I've been talking to lately, whether they are from your show or I had Guy De Silva Green on a couple of days ago, who is a stuntman and choreographer. And what I've heard a lot is that support from family is everything. And so just hearing you say the same thing about your parents, I just want to give you a second because they are on. Give you a second to give them their flowers because as artists, having someone believe in us, having someone support us is one of the largest factors in us not giving up, right? A lot of, parents, well intentioned, believe that certain jobs will give you a certain lifestyle and all they want is for their children to be stable, right? For them to be independent and stable. And so when they hear that we want to go the artist route, they are often afraid of what that might look like. So just if you want for a couple of seconds, you could just give them their flowers about how they were supportive to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. Hi, Mom. Good to see you. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think, even like just little like projects as a kid, like just wanting to just explore different things through like, I mean, from painting to performing to filmmaking, or dancing. I mean, I eventually found that my chosen um, way to express myself creatively was writing, kind of sitting
Mm-hmm.
alone, thinking things through, and then writing it down on a page. But yeah, I just overall just kind of support, and I just feel like that kind of instilled some sort of confidence in me, and also just I also kind of developed a certain, feels weird saying this, like certain like work ethic
Yeah.
as well early on. Definitely pushed me to always do my best and put out the best work I possibly could have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has really helped me, especially, I mean, kind of helped me get me to where I am now, I think.
Yeah.
And uh, yeah, I feel like that confidence that they kind of instilled in me, I just feel like I'm going to accomplish whatever I kind of like set out to do. It might not happen the way that I think it's going to happen, but if I continue kind of exploring all options and talking to people, meeting people, just keeping things moving, like something will come out of it. Yeah, yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you, Mom and Dad. We appreciate you, or we wouldn't be having this conversation today with Jordan. Another thing I wanted to pull out because, as you talked about, film school, right? It's a different experience depending upon the school you go to, depending upon the program you're in, depending upon the person you are, etc. I went to film school myself. Were you in a film program or were you in a screenwriting program? And if it was the latter, how do you think that changed how you learned about story versus, if it were a film program, maybe you only had one or two screenwriting classes here or there? Do you
Okay.
have any?
Um, yeah, because like the opposite side was like we had to take like one or two production classes. I realized I'm really not great with like technical stuff. Like I'm not even sure I want to direct. There's plenty of talented people out there, and TV's about collaboration. So anyway, but yeah, it was. Um, yeah, they just really taught you kind of just like the just the foundations, I guess, of it,
Mhm.
and again, just kind of trying to see what stories you wanted to tell just as individuals and trying to kind of help foster that as professors. And
Mhm.
also, our classes were really small, which is really nice. And so we felt comfortable kind of being vulnerable in our storytelling,
Yeah.
which was cool. I mean, honestly, one of my main samples that I use now was something that I started writing my senior year of college. So but I have rewritten that like a million times. But as I continue to grow as a writer, but yeah, I think it's just a nice kind of boosts into the industry. I will say though, like everything I learned about how the industry currently works, I think, and it comes a lot just in what you put into it.
Hmm.
It was kind of me being proactive, reading, trying to meet people, and all of that. I think that combined with the foundation of film school helped me get to where I am today. Did I answer your question at all? I'm
Yes, it
sorry.
does. Yes. And that's another through line, right? That's what every single person who comes on here has said, that they usually get to their next spot because of someone they've met along the way, like
Yep.
an actual relationship, right? And something that I'm always stressing to people is that you're not just trying to meet people, you're actually trying to form relationships with them,
Yeah.
right? Because if I meet you in a bar tomorrow and we had a good conversation, I still don't know you well enough to know what kind of writer you're going to be if someone says, "Hey, I'm looking for a writer or I'm looking for an assistant." I don't know if you are organized. I don't know if you show up places on time. I don't know what your personality is like, what your conflict resolution is like, what your problem solving is like. And when you're putting your own name on the line for someone who you're recommending, you have to actually know them as a person, right? So that you can tell the other person what they're signing up for. And so a lot of the times we look at it as, oh, it's networking, it's about who you know. We're thinking, oh, I met them that one time, I know them. Why aren't they putting me up for jobs? And it's like, no, it's about those real relationships, those people who actually know you well enough to be able to speak on your behalf. You know, we always hear about wanting people to speak about you in a room that you're not in, right? And the only way they can do that is having that real relationship. So that a relationship got you into your first job, your office PA job. And then because that person left, it got you promoted to the next job. And then you were able to get to the showrunner's assistant position because of someone else that you knew. And then obviously, once you were there, you had shown improved yourself, right? And then you were able to move on into the writer's assistant job. And then it was someone there who said to you, you should apply for this program. It's all about the people that you keep around you. So
Yeah.
that's great. So
Absolutely.
for those people who don't know, let's first talk about being a showrunner's assistant.
Okay.
What does that mean? What is your role? What are you doing?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I was Ramla's assistant technically under her overall, so it was a steadier job. It wasn't just for the show.
Okay.
Um, which is great for me. I got to learn a lot from her. I can get into that in a second. Ramla's amazing. But showrunner's assistant, supports the showrunner of the show. So, I mean, I was on the show from the first day of the mini room, even like before the show got picked up to series. Uh, and then to production, I was there on set, which was amazing. Just meeting everyone in the crew, on the cast, seeing how Ramla uh, watches certain things in Video Village, and how she notes things, and also just how she creates such a positive environment as a leader, as a
Mhm.
creator, the captain of the ship, essentially. Yeah, on from production, the premiere, finale party, all of that, and just kind of helping Ramla in whatever she needed. And I was kind of writer's room adjacent, like I was able to kind of pop in and listen in and contribute, somewhat creatively and things like that. But I just felt really involved in like the whole production, I guess, which is
Mhm.
really great, and just learning how Ramla worked and kind of forming that relationship. And then it was when season 2 came around, like I'll be honest, like I was kind of scared to take that writer's assistant gig because that means I would lose job stability. And like Ramla, sat me down and was like, look, like you're going to be doing freelance eventually. You're going to have to start now. That time in the room is invaluable. And she's absolutely right. I think, like, oh man, I learned so much from being a writer's assistant. Like, I just hearing how people talk, like how people pitch, like what works, what doesn't. It just kind of made, being in a writer's room less scary as well.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and so when I was actually in one, it was a little less daunting.
Yeah.
And Rome was also great too because she creates like low stakes opportunities for people like me coming up to contribute creatively. So
Mhm.
um, I would be, pitching sometimes. Like once I was settled in, pitching or offering solutions. The number one thing I think for assistants, writers assistants, if you're given the opportunity is to pitch, is to always be constructive and not like disruptive, I guess. Like if you're gonna pitch something, like pitch solves, pitch on what they're currently talking about. Don't like flag things that aren't working. Most of the time, they already know that. This is also stuff they reiterate in the Disney writing program as well, just to prepare us for the room. But um, it's just you're the writer's assistant. You're there to support the writers. You're there to support the showrunner's vision. And yeah, I'm done rambling.
That's okay. So we love the ramble. Okay, so can you give us like some like concrete examples of like you're a showrunner's assistant?
Mhm.
What are some of the tasks or duties you would have to do as a showrunner's assistant?
Okay. Making sure Ramla has all the information on where to go set that day. It's been a while. Making sure her calendar's up to date, being there in case she needs any like errands done, during the day. Um, yeah, and coordinating all of her meetings and everything too. Like I am the first point of contact for her, just as a
Mhm.
person. So,
Mhm.
uh, which was cool. I felt very involved in the show that way, and got
Also
to
made
know
you
a lot of people
a
that way.
gatekeeper.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. The gatekeeper. Yeah, essentially, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the job.
Yeah. Okay, so now for people who don't know the difference, what are the tasks? What are the responsibilities when you're the writer's assistant?
You're in the writers' room.
Mhm.
You take notes of the discussion. You sometimes will be the one kind of, for me, it was a virtual Zoom writers' room. And so we had like a virtual cork board of like, those note cards of like story beats and everything. So I was the one kind of operating that. You're the one supposed to track the story and the scripts and everything. And I will say it's a lot of work, I guess. Like you spend all day taking notes and then you spend all night cleaning up those notes. However, you know the story really well after that. And also, like, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, the way my brain works, I wasn't the best assistant. However, being a writer's assistant, I don't know, like it clicked. This is like my brain was really happy. Like I love storytelling. Obviously, I'm a writer, so like it just made sense to me. And because I knew the story so well and like every single iteration of it, um, I think that gave me a little bit of more confidence to eventually start to try and pitch solutions and stuff like that eventually.
Yeah. And so, oh, wait, what was my question? It was about, well, I've lost that question. So I'm like, I had it and now it's gone.
Me all the time.
Okay. Right, exactly. Look at this. Dallas says you were phenomenal as the writer's assistant. Okay, Dallas, thank you. Even though that had nothing to do with what I was thinking, it triggered it for me. So what would you say are the necessary skills to be a good writer's assistant? Because a lot of people think that, well, if that's the way that I get into the writer's room, then just being a writer or wanting to be a writer will make me a good writer's assistant. But what would you say are like the skills that you need to be good at it?
Um, got to be a fast typist, I guess, number one, because you're typing all day trying to keep up with the conversation. Um, again, but like my first job transcribing phone calls all day really helped me with that. And that's just like a skill you randomly just kind of acquire one day. Just kind of,
Mhm.
anyway, that's number one. Number two is just, I don't know, be passionate about the story, but the attention to detail. Um, got to be paying attention, tracking what we're doing and like what we're no longer doing. And I think just story organization, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
Um, in my real life, organization's not great. But like when it comes to storytelling in the writer's room, again, it just works
Yeah.
in my mind. Um, Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are like the main ones, and just whatever they need, whatever the showrunner
Yeah.
needs. I was always trying to kind of anticipate writers' needs as well. Like when it came time to them to go off to outline, for example, I would always make sure, like in the Writers Room Pro board, like every single piece of information, all the details were in there, and that it was correct. and that so they had everything that they could possibly have to then go off to outline.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, it was to help them, but also it's just I'm a part of the team, and I just want to make this the best thing it possibly can be. And um, again, it's just like wild that this is our job, So like I'm gonna put in all my effort on it,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I want to connect these 2 points for those who are listening, that your office PA job started off as transcribing phone calls. And probably at that time in your life, or let's just not make it you, make it any random person, right? Who's like, I want to be a writer, I want to be an actor, I want to be a director. And then they get one of their first jobs in the business and it's nowhere near what they want to be. And so you're doing all this transcribing, you're on the phone, taking all these notes. Okay, okay. Who knew that just however long later, that particular skill would be the reason why you're able to take notes quickly in the writer's room, right? So it's like really realizing that everything we do, everything we experience is going to help us along the way. And those two things just stood out to me because I'm sure I'm a nerd in that way and I'm very organized. So I've had to transcribe videos, I've had to transcribe phone calls, but that kind of stuff, I'm a nerd. So I'm like, ooh, fun. But I can imagine most people are like, oh, okay, right? Until you realize that's the only reason I can keep up with this conversation. Or even going back to when I was young, not everybody had to take a typing class, but my mother was adamant. She's like, you guys have to take typing classes. Now, again, I'm a nerd, so it didn't bother me. My sister, on the other hand, was like, what? Why do I have to take this typing class? But you don't realize now you get to a certain age and you're able to get into a job and get things done quickly, whereas there might be other people who are learning to type. These days, you don't really have that as much because almost everybody grew up with some kind of computer, some kind of keyboard, so they can kind of
Yeah.
make it happen. But back in the day, that was like a skill to be able to type. And so even considering that you're looking for a role like this, because now you're in the room and this is your way to prove your worth, right? So that means you have to be able to do your job well.
Yeah.
Like no matter how well you can pitch, if you're in a room that allows you to pitch,
Yeah.
the notes is your part, right? And you got to be able to do your part.
Yeah, that shouldn't be like I would say like that should not be your priority going into a room as a writer's assistant to pitch your amazing ideas. Uh, you're there to do the work first, and
Mhm.
get settled in and make everyone's lives easier. If pitching solutions later on, if people are stuck on something on how to connect two different things, I really tried to. I'm not sure if I did it all the time. I really tried to um, do that when I was a writer's assistant in the room. But yeah, and I think, I mean, looking back, seeing where I am now, looking back, like every single experience really did connect and help lead me to where I am today. Even like in the moment, I didn't realize it. I mean, I will say, working as an assistant can't for so many years, it can be really tiring, and sometimes you can kind of forget, um, you know, like what the goal is sometimes, and like
Mhm.
is it really worth it? And I will say, like, now I'm like, yeah. And I would say the same thing, like, if you have the option to take an assistant job versus like a bartending job and have time to write, I would say take the assistant job and just make time to write as
Yeah.
well, because you get so many more contacts, and this industry is all about relationships and contacts.
Hmm.
And also just, a way that I was able to kind of, get through, like you we were talking about earlier, is just relationships and in support systems, and
Hmm.
making friends, like really good friends with fellow assistants, and we kind of help boost each other up. Um, and yeah, and like those are like some of my best friends,
Yeah.
into the trenches together, uh, and just kind of reminding each other like why we're doing this and why we're in this,
Hmm.
and um, everything I've learned from being an assistant all the years really serves me well now, and just understanding how TV and film is made. I think you can really see like those who have that foundation and knowledge versus those who are still kind of figuring it out, I think.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm really grateful for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So how many years were you an assistant?
Honestly, I keep on saying like, oh, all these long years. I feel like I've skipped a lot of steps. It was like 1, 20, Like 4 years.
Yeah.
Oh no. It's like, oh, it's been so long. It's been 4 years. Gosh.
Look, it feels long, doesn't it?
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
but still, even with that, you're able to say it's only been 4 years because you're looking back from where you are now. When you're in the middle of it, we all think we're going to get into the industry and walk straight into the writer's room. You know what I mean? We think, oh, I graduated from college. I have my degree. I'm just going to be able to walk into it. And really, there is some place where you have to start and you get to work your way up. And what that means is you made the right connections. You met the right people. Also, you had been writing, you were working on your craft, so that when it was time to show someone something, you had something to show them.
Yeah.
So that's awesome that, 4 years went by and you were able to just continue to climb your way up. It also means that you met the right kind of people because you're not the first person to say, everyone who's come on has had something great to say about Ramla, right? Like the type of leader she is
Yeah.
helps to build the type of industry people you guys are. You know what I mean? Because if you encounter a bad leader, then you can sometimes take on some of that bad sauce too, right? And take that through your career. And it seems like because of the type of atmosphere she creates, that it really helps you guys to grow. And I'm the kind of person who feels like I would never want anybody to work with me, walk out of that situation into another one and be the bad juju and they realize, oh, you used to work with Shannan. Right? It's like working with me should be an opportunity for you to grow so that you're better when you get to the place that you're going. And I think that all leaders
Yeah.
should look at it that way. You're not just managing the set, you're managing the people. You're there for their development, and you can't let what's happening with the story and what's happening with the show be bigger than the human beings who are there, who will have to continue on in their career and their journey. And it just seems like that's the kind of showrunner that she
Yeah.
is.
I mean, so many great things to say about her. I think, something I noticed since like day one working with her and on the show was just like, we had a virtual Zoom writers room, and so you miss out on some of that, in between like lunchtime talks and just bonding in person. And it was really cool to see how Ramla as a leader kind of tried to still kind of create this comfortable environment because it is so intimate in some ways. Like you're sharing stories, you're just talking about just life and just how you can kind of weave that into the show and the characters. And for example, I think I'm allowed to say this. I hope I am. But like she did like story time Fridays. Like every Friday someone would tell like a funny or a story industry related. And just kind of just getting to know each other that way and just little things like that. I think really went a long way. And
Yeah.
just trying to organize social gatherings and events and things like that. And she's very generous in that way. And I think that does help, and it does come through on the screen, especially as just people who are just a little bit more bonded, will work
Hmm.
harder, and just that comes through in the storytelling, I
Yeah,
think.
absolutely. So speaking of storytelling, we just saw episode 4.
Oh my gosh. It's so
What,
good.
so what are your thoughts? I feel you obviously have background information that we don't have, right? But what are some of the moments that you want to kind of pick out and discuss from episode 4?
Yeah, I'll talk about it from like again my writer's assistant perspective.
Yeah.
I think what was really cool was, I mean, I was in the writer's room the entire time. I've heard the origin of this story, to like every single version of it. Um, and I knew exactly what was going to happen, but I watched it this past week and I was actually crying. Like, it was just, I don't know, like, I mean, goes to the actors and the performances as well, just fully fleshing it out. I think it's
Mhm.
just, I don't know. It was really impressive to see what Shannan, who plays Chanel, and everyone kind of brought to it and how they're living in it. And just in Chanel, the character's experience and story, it's so sadly, I mean, she played it very specific, if that makes sense. Like,
Mhm.
it's a very
Mhm.
specific situation between her and her husband. Um, but in a lot of ways, it's sadly kind of universal, whether it be, emotional manipulation or just being a woman and feeling pressure to present a certain way and push certain things down. I don't know, this Reasonable Doubt is great in my opinion because there's so many just amazing, just fully fleshed out characters.
Mhm.
I think that something for someone to relate to. And that's something I'm very a character driven writer myself as well. And I just, that's what I'm drawn to. And I thought this past episode was beautiful at everything from, yeah, just the directing, the performances, the costumes, the writing, like all of it. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Chanel's monologue. I
Yeah.
think that one of the reasons it was powerful is because it's trendy to talk about it from that point of view now, because women on TikTok are being open and vulnerable, right? And we have never really, I think, as women, talked about how the love bombing and manipulation can start from day one, right? And I think that's a newer concept for women to be talking about out loud. Like, we know that people can be manipulative, we know that people can be abusive, we know these things, but it feels like, to me, it's the conversation that's been conjuring for like the last couple of years about how, in this particular case, a man, obviously women can be this way too, but in this particular case, a man meets you and from that moment starts picking out your insecurities and playing on them, right? Starts figuring out how they can separate you from everything else that you have so that you only have them, how they manipulate you out of your job so that you have to depend on them. And that, to me, is the difference in Chanel's story on television than a lot of the other abused wives that we usually hear from, is that she took it out of her own hands and didn't give him any grace, right? But actually just laid on the table. But what if he was planning this from the beginning? And I just felt like that in itself was a twist on how we usually, talk about these things.
Yeah. Yeah. It was beautiful. Again, I really do believe in like, I don't know, universality, right? Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah. And specificity, right? I don't know. Yeah, it was just beautifully written. Shout out to Zaire McGee who wrote the episode, and of course Ramla, and the whole team for also just kind of everyone kind of contributed. And unfortunately, like I said, like there's something to relate to
Mm-hmm.
in all of this, and people feeling brave enough to share personal parts of themselves and their experiences. And I think that's what I think is really beautiful about a writer's room is I like there's nothing really like it in my mind. Like it gives me so much like energy and joy, just getting to talk about all of these sometimes heavy, sometimes
Yeah.
really joyous, topics with other human beings, all from different perspectives and backgrounds. And I think that's really beautiful and really, really
Mm-hmm.
amazing. Um, and you get really cool art out of it, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I sounded
something
so film school kid. Sorry.
no, that's
Art.
okay. Because something I tell the writers I work with all the time is, if you want the viewer to be vulnerable when they're watching, you have to be vulnerable when you're writing. And the thing about doing that in a writer's room is you have to be vulnerable with the other people who are in the room. Like, this is sharing of your business, right? But it's supposed to be this safe and intimate space. And unless you're willing to be vulnerable, you can miss something that's really going to be impactful or change someone's life, on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Storytelling can be really impactful, and it's something I keep reminding ourselves, every day.
Hmm.
A lot of ways for me personally, I mean, I'm just now getting into it, but writing has kind of just been for me. It's been very therapeutic, just like a way to like look at things from all sides and process it enough to form a story or a fictional story around it, And it's just, that's I feel like first and foremost, it's like kind of for us in a way, but then also, I mean, we're making TV, we're making entertainment, and like I'm reminding myself, right? Like this is going out to people and hopefully connecting to people, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, two things before we open it up to questions. And so, anybody who has a question, use that question box at the bottom of your screen. I don't know if anybody else hears the echo, but I hear it on my end. So that's why I'm speaking this way. I'm like, is it going to go somewhere? So there's a question box at the bottom of your screen if you have any questions for Jordan. So first, we can't ignore the plot twist, cliffhanger of last week's episode. And I'm wondering, obviously, you can't tell us, but I'm wondering from the people who have watched who they think actually hit him on the head. Now that we see that it wasn't Chanel, who do we think it is? Now, I have someone who I'd like it to be, but I think that's the on the nose option. But then there's someone who I don't want it to be. So I'm hoping it's not that person. But if you've seen it, guys, drop in the comments who you think is the culprit. Who, look at Dallas? He's like, who do you think actually hit him over the head? And if you can, tell us about the moment in the writer's room, or maybe even the moment that you watched it, whichever moment where you guys realized the plot twist was coming in, where you guys realized, oh, this is going to a different place. Like, it's not as simple and straightforward as we thought it was.
Man, I could be misremembering, but I think it was Bromla's vision from the start,
Okay.
I believe.
And
And
yeah.
also conversations. I don't remember like a specific moment where like, oh man, but I think it was, I mean, I guess like, yeah, there's has been different versions of the story, and from like, of course, like the first pitch out of season 2
Yeah.
to where it ended up. I honestly don't remember if there was like a specific moment. I think it was just kind of based on just where the story kind of ended up going, I think,
Yeah.
and what made the most sense. And then again, just kind of going back to just characters and like just knowing our characters well.
Yeah.
Um,
Because it's great storytelling,
yeah,
for us it can't be what we think it is.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. And like Romla is like such a master at like reading the audience and just know like the sixth sense of just like knowing like what an audience will like and how they think, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's really cool like to hear her kind of talk about that in the room and kind of pitch on that and kind of create this kind of, it's just a tonally specific show, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
character drama, it's a legal drama, it's a mystery, like it's, soapy at times, like a fun soapy at times. It's just a lot of great things mashed together. Yeah.
Awesome. So while we get people prepared to put their questions in, if you have any, do you want to talk to us about like the show that you're on now? What's this show about? How can we catch it, or when can we catch it?
Yeah, it's called High Potential. It was going to be on ABC. Premieres September 17th after Dance
Oh, coming up.
starts. It stars Caitlin Olsen as she's a high potential intellectual, which means she's crazy smart. And that's all I'm going to say because I'm afraid what I can say. I don't know.
Afraid to say the wrong
Um,
thing. I know that's right.
there's trailers out there. Watch them and then tune in on the 17th.
I love it. Hey, but see, that's also a lesson for the people who are watching. You know what I mean? There are spoilers that you can't put out. There are things that legally you aren't able to say, which is why there are, what we say, PR trainings when you're in the business. So we don't want you to get in
Yeah.
trouble. So
So
that's
plenty of
totally
that.
okay.
So I'm just going to shut up. Just not say anything.
Does anybody have any other questions for Jordan? Let me check my question box. Anybody have questions about being a showrunner's assistant, being a writer's assistant, anything about her journey, anything about the show while we have her? We learned so much today. Like, you called it rambling, we called it learning.
Well, I'm glad.
Yeah,
Something
we love it.
but
Then it makes it easy for me because then I don't have to ask a whole lot of questions because you're giving me the information. Okay, here we go. How do you know when to take someone's note and when to trust your gut and ignore the note?
I'm still figuring that out myself. I think watching some of the people I admire, like Ramla and other like leaders and creators I admire, I think it comes with experience. I think, and I'm told, they've been working in the industry a while. They've been in a lot of notes calls and seen it done by their bosses at the time. And then I think like a successful creator of a show, leader, like has a very clear vision from the start and like knows what is at the heart of the story they're trying to tell, and also the confidence to trust that and follow that, and also kind of pick and choose their battles, I guess.
Yeah.
Because again, it's very collaborative, and there's a lot of great ideas that come from just different points of view and conversations and everything. So I think if you know what story you're trying to tell, like, it's very basic, heart of it. I think you'll be able to tell, you know,
Mhm.
what note to take or not, I guess. Or
Yeah.
also you like start to receive kind of like, if you receive like multiple notes, to see like which ones are you getting multiples of, and which ones kind of just seem like just, way out there. And you can kind of just like kind of get like, okay, so people are understanding this. I need to clarify this more. Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next question. How quickly do you have to submit your script when it's assigned to you, your episode?
It depends. Dallas, do you wanna do you wanna comment in the chat? I think it depends on every show. I mean, the show High Potential right now is moving very fast. I think it depends on like streaming versus
Mm-hmm.
broadcast, and just how the showrunner kind of structures the room, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
just 7 days. Okay, thank you, Dallas. I'm going to stop talking. All right.
Yeah, a week, and then it depends on if things are going smoothly and how many notes you're getting back and what the rewrites are, right? Because sometimes it's, well, we've been rewriting this for however long and now it's time to go. So now you only got 2 days to turn around,
Yeah.
whatever it is that you're doing.
Mhm.
So it
Yeah,
just
and yeah,
depends.
yeah.
All right. Next question is, what do you think it holds back a good writer from being a great writer?
Um, uh, I think, I don't know. I, I'm only going to speak for myself. I think like I choose to kind of like lead with, sounds weird to say, humility, and trying to just let my work do the talking, and
Mhm.
just not like I want to listen to everyone's points of view and feedback, um, and I think being open to that and being open to getting help and advice, and also just working with others and collaboration. I think you can learn a lot from other people, and
Mhm.
um, yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
And instead of like pushing an agenda, just being open to what comes, and yeah, because I mean we can plan out every step of our career in our heads, but it never happens that
No.
way. So you've got to just do the work yourself, keep writing, I guess, and keep putting in the reps,
Mhm.
essentially. And whenever that opportunity comes, it comes out of nowhere, often at the worst time, I feel. But
Mhm.
you will have something to show for yourself, I guess, and
Yeah. And to
yourself up.
add to that, it's kind of what we've been talking about this whole time. In my experience, what stops a good writer from being a great writer is that ego that believes that there is no note that can help them, right? That they are so great at what they're doing that they don't have to collaborate with everyone else, right? Like you can be really, really good, but at home doing this on your own, all by yourself, right? But just imagine if you take all of the brains, all of the skill sets, all the experiences of all these other people who are around you, how much magic you can make. And so coming into this industry, especially in television, especially in television. You don't like group work?
Yeah.
You don't like people? Not it. It's not the best road to take. You know what I mean? So I think that stands in the way of a lot of people. And that's because we grow up as creatives, we are doing this in solitude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like as a screenwriter, you are at home by yourself writing your script as you're trying to make it into the industry. And then suddenly you're in and now all of these other people are participating, but you think that you are, the only person who understands your universe. And so it's really hard to, let people in. And like you said, know which note you're going to take, know how to make sure that everybody understands that their perspective is necessary and wanted, but doesn't mean it's going to make it into the script, right? But how do you be a great collaborator?
Mhm.
So I think that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, a writer's room TV, a writer's room, like just, you know, building off of each other and just like those aha moments you have together as a group is like a drug to me. Like it's like there's nothing like it. It's why I do it, and yeah, it's wonderful, and people have really amazing stories to tell and perspectives, and yeah.
Yeah. Last question for you, and then we're going to let you go. Thank you so much for your time. Any advice for the dreaded writer's block?
Um, I think you just have to you keep writing through it.
Yeah,
I think, I
got to
mean,
write through it.
only way I can get anything done is if I set a deadline, whether it be an actual deadline from my boss or you know, join a writer's group where you have a set deadline to get, you know, the first act done by Saturday or whatever. You just have to push through it because like TV is so fast paced. Like you don't have time for writer's block. It's your job. You write. You push through it. And you just push through it.
Yeah.
But I think, but also just like reaching out to friends too. If you are stuck, what I like to do is like reach out to, you know, my fellow writers in my like little trusted circle, just kind of get their advice, and that often helps get things going again
Mm-hmm.
in my head. Yeah, it's all about that again, that support system, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah. And everybody goes through it. Everybody gets blocked at some point. But I think it's a privilege to be able to sit in that block
Yeah.
because you are at your home still trying to grind to get into the industry. So there's no one waiting for you. You know what I mean? But when you're in it and you're in your contract, that deadline is coming, whether you write or not. You know what I'm saying? And then now it's connected to your check, it's connected to your livelihood, it's connected to your next gig. You know what I mean? So that writing through it is, you know, one of the most disciplined things that you can do because you don't have the privilege of just being able to be, oh, I'm blocked, I haven't written in months. It's like, hey, the script was due yesterday. You're going to have to turn in something. You know what I mean? You got to keep writing.
So, yeah, exactly. Another thing I noticed is when um, when I wasn't getting paid to write or being in a writer's room, I think when I was trying to work on my own samples and everything, I think it was just the more consistent I was, I think, writing every day, it was easier once you stop. I mean, taking breaks is also really good for you and
Mhm.
for your mental health, and so you don't get burnt out. But like the longer of a break I would take, the harder it would be to get my brain to start working in that way again, I guess. And just I kept on running into more and more like blocks, I guess.
Yeah,
And but once I was just kind of like working the muscle every day, just I mean, even if it's just like writing down a concept for a scene, just like thinking creatively, I think really helps keep things going.
yeah,
In my head
absolutely.
at least. But yeah,
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here
thanks for
with
having
us
me.
today. We appreciate you. And before you go, I have to do a spiel that I do every single time. It has nothing to do with you, but you have to sit through it
I can't wait.
for a second. But hey, everyone, Shannan E. Johnson here, CEO of The Professional Pen, where we develop screenwriters from idea to pitch. Need help with your screenplay? Go to www.theprofessionalpen.com. Thank you so much, Jordan. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Y'all watch Reasonable Doubt on Thursday on Hulu. Well, it comes out at midnight on Wednesday. So midnight on Wednesday on Hulu. And then join us next Sunday for our next special guest. Y'all have a good night.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.